The financial world is in absolute panic right now, and if you're not paying attention, you could lose everything. Donald Trump just sent shockwaves through global markets with a single question that made the US dollar crash 1.2% in minutes. This isn't just political theater anymore. This is a full-blown economic crisis that could reshape the entire American financial system. What happened yesterday will go down in history as one of the most dangerous moments for the Federal Reserve's independence since its creation. Trump walked into a meeting with lawmakers and casually asked whether he should fire Jay Powell, the Federal Reserve chairman. That's right, the President of the United States is literally considering firing the most powerful financial figure in the world. The markets went into complete freefall. The dollar, which represents the strength of the entire American economy, plummeted against every major currency. Investors started panic selling, and for a brief moment, it looked like we were heading for a complete financial meltdown. This is exactly what happens when the foundation of our monetary system starts cracking. But here's what's really terrifying: this isn't just a one-time outburst. Trump has been systematically attacking Powell for months, calling him a numbskull and demanding that the Fed slash interest rates by a massive 3 percentage points. Think about that for a second. The current rate is between 4.25 and 4.5%, and Trump wants it cut down to essentially nothing. Why is this so dangerous? Because the Federal Reserve is supposed to be independent from political pressure. It's designed to make decisions based on economic data, not what the president wants. When politicians start interfering with monetary policy, economies collapse. Just look at Turkey, where President Erdogan kept firing central bank chiefs until he found someone who would do his bidding. The result? Their currency became practically worthless. The scary part is that Trump's attack isn't just about interest rates. His administration is going after Powell on multiple fronts. They're claiming he mismanaged a $2.5 billion renovation of the Fed's headquarters in Washington, calling it grossly mismanaged and ostentatious. They're painting Powell as some kind of wasteful bureaucrat who's building luxury offices with taxpayer money. Powell has denied these claims, explaining that many of the expensive features mentioned in the original plans, including special elevators, beehives, and roof terraces, were actually scrapped. But the damage is already done. Trump is building a narrative that Powell is incompetent and needs to be replaced. What's really happening here is a fundamental attack on the institution that keeps our economy stable. The Federal Reserve's independence isn't just some abstract concept, it's what prevents politicians from manipulating the economy for short-term political gain. When that independence is threatened, investors lose confidence in the entire system. You can see this fear playing out in real time in the markets. Long-term inflation expectations are skyrocketing because investors are terrified that Trump will install a Fed chair who will just do whatever he wants. The 10-year inflation break-even rate hit 2.4% on Wednesday, the highest level since February. This means investors expect much higher inflation in the coming years if the Fed loses its independence. The bond market is absolutely freaking out. The yield on 30-year Treasury bonds has climbed above 5% this week, which is a massive red flag. When long-term government bonds start demanding higher interest rates, it means investors are worried about the government's ability to control inflation and maintain economic stability. Professional investors are sounding the alarm. Bill Campbell from DoubleLine said you can literally see the increased chance that Trump will fire Powell reflected in market movements. JP Morgan's chief economist warned that while the immediate crisis may have passed, this saga is far from over. Goldman Sachs called the market reaction characteristic of a risk-off in U.S. assets, which is financial speak for investors are running for the exits. They're treating this like a major crisis that goes way beyond just monetary policy. It's about the entire unpredictable nature of Trump's economic agenda. Here's what makes this situation even more dangerous. Trump's tariff policies are already stoking inflation concerns. The Fed has been hesitant to cut rates precisely because they're worried that Trump's trade policies will drive prices higher. Now Trump is demanding rate cuts while simultaneously implementing policies that require higher rates to control inflation. It's economic madness. The international implications are staggering. The US dollar is the world's reserve currency, and when it becomes unstable, every economy on Earth feels the impact. Other central banks are watching this situation with growing alarm because they know that American monetary policy affects their own economies. What's particularly concerning is that Trump seems to be following the playbook of authoritarian leaders who have destroyed their own economies by politicizing monetary policy. When you start firing central bank officials for not following political orders, you're heading down a very dangerous path that historically leads to economic collapse. The timing couldn't be worse. We're already dealing with elevated inflation, global trade tensions, and uncertainty about future economic policy. Adding a constitutional crisis over Federal Reserve independence to this mix is like throwing gasoline on a fire. Investors are already positioning themselves for the worst-case scenario. They're buying inflation hedges, dumping long-term bonds, and preparing for a world where the Federal Reserve becomes a political tool rather than an independent institution. This shift in expectations is already costing the economy billions of dollars. The most terrifying part is that we're still in the early stages of this crisis. Trump's term has just begun, and Powell's term doesn't end until May. That gives us months of potential confrontation, market volatility, and economic uncertainty. Every speech, every tweet, every casual comment could send markets into another tailspin. What happens next will determine whether America maintains its position as the world's financial leader or joins the ranks of countries where political interference destroyed economic credibility. The stakes couldn't be higher, and the outcome will affect every single person watching this video. This isn't just about politics or personalities, it's about the fundamental structure of our economic system. When that structure starts crumbling, everyone pays the price through higher inflation, market crashes, and economic instability. The question isn't whether this will affect you, it's how much damage it will do to your financial future. The financial world is holding its breath, waiting to see whether American institutions can withstand this unprecedented assault on their independence. What we're witnessing right now could be the beginning of a complete transformation of how monetary policy works in America, and that transformation could have devastating consequences for everyone.